have our own struggle, which we are conducting. We are grateful to the world for supporting our struggle. But nevertheless, we are an independent organization with its own policy. Our attitude towards any country is determined by the attitude of that country to our struggle.
Welcome to the Africa Infographics channel. Before we start, I want to ask you a question. In your opinion, what happened to Pan-Africanism? Is it dead? For those of you who don't know, let me give a simple definition. Pan-Africanism is an old ideology from around the 1950s that emphasizes the unity, solidarity, and self-determination of African countries and people. It was popularized by African leaders such as Kwame Nkrumah, who sought to promote economic and political cooperation among African nations. I don't know for you, but it seems this idea have died, but I wanted to see if it was visible through numbers. So I decided to check. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the import and export trade between African countries in an attempt to see what is being traded between African countries. The data comes from the Observatory of Economic Complexity website. If you have an idea of what happened to Pan-Africanism, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let's get to it. As you know, Africa is a continent rich in natural resources. A lot has been said about the products that flow out of the continent to Europe, China, or America. But in this video, I wanted to look at the products that are traded between the countries on the continent. With increasing trade and investment opportunities, it is important to understand the flow of goods and services within the African continent. Together, we will explore the trading relationships between African countries, as well as the products they exchange. First, let's divide the African countries into two groups. In 2021, out of all 54 African countries, 27 had another African country in their top 3 for exports or imports. That amounts to exactly half of the continent. Below is the list of these 27 countries. Here's a list of countries that only have countries outside of the African continent in their top 3 trading partners. These countries, such as Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt, also have some of the largest GDPs in Africa. While they do export to countries within the continent, it is not at the same level as their exports to countries outside of Africa. Let's get back to our list. We'll begin with the countries that share a border. There were 27 trade partners in total. To keep this video short, I will focus on 6 of these relationships in more detail and simply provide the numbers for the others. Let's start with Kenya, Uganda. They have 2 different currencies, the Kenyan shilling and the Ugandan shilling. Kenya and Uganda share a 772 kilometers long border and a deep history of political and economic ties since the colonial era. The 2 countries had numerous trade agreements over the years. Kenya is one of Uganda's largest trading partner, and Uganda is Kenya's second largest trading partner in the East African Community region. The 2 countries have a number of joint projects in transportation, energy, and trade, and have made significant strides in the areas of infrastructure development, tourism, and education. In 2021, Uganda imported $831 million worth of goods from Kenya. It was mainly cement for around $91.7 million, palm oil for about $91.6 million, and coated flat-rolled iron for an estimated $65.2 million. Next is Cameroon and Nigeria. They have 2 different currencies, the Central Africa CFA and the Nigerian Naira. Cameroon and Nigeria share a 1,975 kilometers border and have a deep history of political and economic ties, despite occasional disputes over their border. The 2 countries are important trading partners, with Nigeria being one of Cameroon's largest trading partner. Both countries are known for their large oil reserves, which are major sources of revenue for their economies. In recent years, there have been tensions between the 2 countries over border disputes, particularly in the oil-rich Bakassi Peninsula, but efforts have been made to resolve these issues through dialogue and diplomatic channels. In 2021, Cameroon imported $551 million worth of goods from Nigeria. It was mainly special purpose ships for around $419 million, scrap vessels for $88.2 million, and passenger and cargo ships for an estimated $15.1 million. Coming up next is Mozambique and South Africa. They have two different currencies, the Mozambican medical and the South African rand. Mozambique and South Africa have a 410 kilometers long border with history of diplomatic, economic, and cultural ties. The two countries share a common border, and South Africa played a significant role in supporting Mozambique's fight for independence from Portugal. The two countries are members of the Southern African Development Community and have engaged in various regional economic integration initiatives, including the establishment of a free trade area. There is also a significant number of Mozambican migrants living and working in South Africa, contributing to the economy of both countries. In 2021, Mozambique imported $4.2 billion worth of goods from South Africa and also exported $968 million worth of goods to South Africa. The exports were mainly petroleum gas for around $416 million and electricity for an estimated $295 million. The imports iron ore for $908 million and chromium ore for $579 million. The DRC and Zambia share a 2,332 kilometers border and have had a long-standing relationship since the colonial era. Zambia supported the Congolese independence movement in the 1960s, and the two countries have had a history of cooperation in areas such as infrastructure development and trade. In 2021, the DRC imported $1.11 billion worth of goods from Zambia and also $1.07 billion worth of goods from South Africa. From Zambia, it was mainly flavored water for around $113 million, sulfur for $108 million, and electricity for an estimated $70.9 million. Then in the West, we have Senegal and Mali. They share the same currency, the West African CFA franc. Senegal and Mali share a history dating back to the empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Both countries gained independence from France in 1960 and have since maintained close diplomatic relations. Senegal is Mali's main trading partner, with trade dominated by exports of foodstuffs, petroleum products, and textiles. Mali, on the other hand, exports gold, livestock, and cotton to Senegal. The two countries also share cultural ties, with Senegal serving as a hub for Malian musicians and artists. In 2021, Senegal exported $1.05 billion worth of goods to Mali. It was mainly refined petroleum for around $504 million and cement for $118 million. Another trade partnership is Ethiopia and Somalia. They have two different currencies, the Ethiopian birr and the Somali shilling. Ethiopia and Somalia share a 1,648 kilometers border with a long history of both conflict and cooperation. One of the main points of contention between Ethiopia and Somalia is the status of the Ogaden region, which is claimed by both countries. This has led to armed conflict in the past. In recent years, Ethiopia and Somalia have been working to improve their economic ties. In 2018, the two countries signed the tripartite agreement along with Eritrea. This agreement aims to cooperate on various infrastructure projects, including roads, ports, and airports. In 2021, Somalia imported $361 million worth of goods from Ethiopia. It was mainly vegetables for around $255 million and cassava for an estimated $61.3 million. Here are the other nations in the list. I will briefly go through what they trade between each other.
At that time, the spirit was about the continent of Africa. We were conscious, the leaders were conscious that Africa, decolonized without unity, would remain weak. And of course, Africa is weak. The weakest continent on earth is this continent in which we are, our continent. So the struggle for independence was everywhere across the world. The Nkrumah of all leaders at that time was able to see that if we were not united, we would go nowhere.
Now, let's check some partnerships between countries that do not share a border. I will again only give details on two of these relationships and quickly show the details of the others. Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria. They have two different currencies, the West African CFA franc and the Nigerian naira. Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria have a significant economic relationship, with Nigeria being one of Côte d'Ivoire's main trading partners. Nigeria is also a major source of investment. Additionally, there is a large population of Nigerian immigrants living and working there. In 2021, Nigeria exported $1.33 billion to Côte d'Ivoire. The main products that Nigeria exported are crude petroleum for $1.28 billion, nitrogenous fertilizers for $17.6 million, and pesticides for $13.5 million. Next, we have Zambia and South Africa. They have two different currencies, the Zambian kwacha and the South African rand. Zambia and South Africa have a good economic and political relationship. South Africa is one of Zambia's largest trading partners, and the two countries have a bilateral trade agreement that promotes trade and investment. In addition, many South African companies have invested in Zambia, particularly in the mining sector. Politically, the two countries have cooperated on regional issues, including peacekeeping and conflict resolution efforts in the Southern African Development Community region. South Africa exported $2.33 billion to Zambia. The main products that South Africa exported to Zambia are nitrogenous fertilizers for $126 million, refined petroleum for $76.2 million, and delivery trucks for $72.6 million. Again, I will quickly go through the other trade relationships.
Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their lands. If we are being baited to enter a European community, we must have something that community needs, and needs badly, when it pretends to offer a bonus by way of aid. When Greeks come bearing grapes, should we not look them well in the mouth? If I may mix my metaphor, but I'm sure you get my meaning.
So, if we check what country is doing significant business with other African countries, South Africa is number 1 with 11 African countries that have them in their top 3. Also, 4 African countries have Nigeria in their top 3 trade partners. Some of you might have realized also the huge presence of China, India, and the Emirates as trade partners. I will dedicate another video on that subject alone, so stay tuned and subscribe to not miss it. The trade relationships between various African countries demonstrate the potential benefits of Pan-Africanism, a movement that seeks to promote unity and cooperation among African nations. While there may be challenges and conflicts between countries, these examples show that trade and economic ties can serve as a foundation for greater collaboration and understanding. As we reflect on these partnerships, it is worth considering the role of Pan-Africanism in promoting peace and prosperity on the continent. That will be it for this video. Now it's time for you to participate. Do you think that Pan-Africanism is a dead concept? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
I'm beginning by saying that the place of the diaspora, the status of people in the diaspora, of the African diaspora, is intimately linked with what happens on the continent. An Africa strong and performing transforms your position and your status here in Europe. But an Africa which continues to live the narrative of poverty, hungry children, people going across the Sahara, going in rickety boats and dying in Lampedusa to get to Europe. That Africa is not a narrative that is going to help you over here. So I think between you and us, our main task is the transformation of the continent.